Wow, guys, I can't believe it. I haven't made a Captain Underpants review in 2 months. Wow. I just can't believe this. So yeah, without further ado, let's review the second half of Captain Underpants and the Wrath of the Wicked Wedgie Woman. Here we go. Now, the last time we saw George and Harold, Miss Ribble had dropped their grades because they did a prank on her. And because of this, George and Harold want to hypnotize Miss Ribble into getting their grades back to normal. So that's exactly what they do. Unfortunately, whenever you hypnotize a male, let's say you hypnotize a male and tell him to mop the floor, he'll do it. But if you hypnotize a female and tell her to mop the floor, she won't. Or she might even make matters worse and make the floor even dirtier. Sadly, George and Harold didn't know this, so they hypnotized Miss Ribble and told her to change their grades back to normal and not to turn into Wicked Wedgie Woman. Uh-oh. So that night, George and Harold have a sleepover in George's treehouse, and they just have a good time. I mean, they drink soda, eat stuff like donuts and pizza, watch Gamera. Yes, I know what Gamera is. And they're just having a good time. That is, until this friggin' lady shows up to ruin it. Also, it turns out that George and Harold have extendable jaws. Turns out that Miss Ribble, also known as Wicked Wedgie Woman, had read George and Harold's Captain Underpants comics, and she knows that they have information about Captain Underpants, and she wants to know about it. Luckily, George and Harold use their smarts, and with their smarts, they make Wicked Wedgie Woman trip over, which horribly results with a third of the alien superpower juice that gave Captain Underpants his superpowers to fall into Wicked Wedgie Woman's hair. Uh-oh. Turns out that the superpower juice not only makes her hair superpowery, but it also makes her super smart. So what does she do? She makes a robo George and Harold. Wicked Wedgie Woman then equips them with some spray starch and sends them to George and Harold School, where they can find Captain Underpants and defeat him. Actually, it turns out that nobody in the classroom actually notices that this is not the real George and Harold, and that they're actually robots, because they're all stupid. Interestingly enough, Robo Harold is actually able to kick a rubber ball out of the page of the book. Somehow. Turns out that kicking a rubber ball out of the page of the book is not in the big book-o rules. So Mr. Krupp snaps his fingers at Robo Harold, which then transforms him into Captain Underpants. So I guess it turns out that even if Mr. Krupp snaps his own fingers, he can turn into Captain Underpants. Weird. Robo George and Robo Harold turn giant and fly after Captain Underpants. And then they proceed to spray him with spray starch, which takes away his superpowers. Oh no! Wicked Wedgie Woman then decides to kill George and Harold. So she grabs an axe and does all this stuff, and it would hopefully kill them, even though it would probably either go in between and free them, or just hit one of them and not the other. It turns out to just free them. Then Wicked Wedgie Woman and her robot start going crazy, like Robo George and Harold start climbing buildings and holding tanks and helicopters and missiles and cars and start destroying stuff, and like everything's on fire, and like all heck is going loose, and George and Harold have to hide behind a bush because they can't do anything, and yeah, everything's just going crazy. Fun fact, Wicked Wedgie Woman's hair is actually saying Wedgie Woman in sign language. Wedgie Woman. Yeah, I just thought that was pretty cool. The only thing George and Harold can do now is call Captain Underpants. But Captain Captain Underpants believes that spray starch is his only weakness, and because he got sprayed with spray starch, his powers don't work anymore. But that's not true. He still has powers no matter what. George and Harold then decide to go to the store and get some fabric softener. But the only store around is everything except fabric softeners. Seriously? So George and Harold have to make a comic explaining the origin of Captain Underpants, which explains that when Captain Underpants says magic words, the power of spray starch won't affect him. Hooray! Captain Underpants then gets up and gets ready to fight Robo George and Robo Harold in Flip-O-Rama, which I will not be showing you. Sure, Robo George and Robo Harold were defeated, but the war wasn't over yet. There was still the Wicked Wedgie Woman. So, George gets some extra strength spray starch and says out loud, very loudly, that he will keep it safe away from Wedgie Woman. Wicked Wedgie Woman then grabs the extra power spray starch and decides to spray it everywhere. But it turns out that the spray starch wasn't actually spray starch. It was hair remover, and that George used reverse psychology. George and Harold then hypnotized Wicked Wedgie Woman back into Miss Ribble and making her nice by saying the exact opposite of what they want to say. And it works. Miss Ribble is now a nice teacher who gives a lot of cookies to her class. And everything is okay, except for the fact that whenever you snap your fingers, you know who appears. Tra-la-la. So yes, this is the 5th installment of the entire Captain Underpants series, created by Dave Pilkey, who created the entire Captain Underpants series. And one last thing. After this book, all the other books will end on a cliffhanger except for book 12 that ends with a happy ending. So, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time when I review Captain Underpants and the Big Bad Battle of the Bionic Booger Boy Part 1, The Night of the Nasty Nostril Nuggets. I'll see you there.